Hello, my name is Rick Beerhorst, and I live here in Grand Rapids. I'm a fine artist and a musician. I'm father of 6 kids, and my wife Brenda is also a painter. And I'm here tonight to share my glorious failure with regard to moving to New York City. New York is a city that I fell in love with when I was 20. I went to New York on an interim from Calvin College and stayed in a loft in Tribeca with 10 or 11 other students. And when I was there, I had grown up in Kentwood, and I had been very firmly embedded in suburban culture. So to suddenly be in New York in the early 80s was like amazing. And it was also like, it was like coming home, too. I was just coming into the awareness of being an artist and what that meant. And this was the place in the world you'd want to be. New York City has been the art capital of the world since after World War II. And so it was just fantastic. I managed to I moved to New York about a year after college and lived there for just about a year. Went to graduate school. Came back here, met Brenda, got married, started having children. And then it's 2002, and Brenda and I start having this conversation about what would it mean to move our family to New York City. And we gave ourselves 3 years, and that was really a test because we have lots of ideas all the time, and this could just be one of those what we call caffeine dreams. And we figured, if it died away in a couple months like most of our ideas, okay, it's on the scrap pile. But this idea didn't die away. In fact, it gathered momentum. And so we found a artist cooperative in Brooklyn that we could buy into. It was just for artists, and they were making it available far below market value. So that sounded good to us. We put our house up for sale, and it sold. It was 2005, and it sold really fast and for a lot more than we paid for it. So we had some cash. But then we found out that this co-op actually got all bound up in New York City red tape, and it wasn't going to be available. So then what were we to do? Well, we had to rent. Rose, my oldest daughter, and I went before the family, scout out a place. We found an apartment. The only way the landlord would take us on as tenants was if we were to pay the whole year's rent up front. That's because I never made any more than $30,000 a year, and to a New Yorker, that's like way below the poverty line. So that was the deal we worked out. So we wired $27,000 to this landlord, and of course you have to pay a key money to the broker. That was a whole other thing. But we got our apartment. We got our place to live. We got rid of about half of our belongings, packed what we had left in a U-Haul, and with our late model station wagon behind, we drove out to New York. We started having engine trouble in Ohio with the U-Haul. Okay? It was a nightmare, people. I don't have time for all the details. We finally got to New York. The movers had come and left already. It was pouring rain. The super, who spoke barely any English, mostly Russian, was very angry with me because I was using the wrong door. We got into our apartment, and the remodel wasn't done. The bathroom was almost completely unusable, and there was just a subfloor in the kitchen. So what was I going to do? Not, pay a month's rent? I felt totally bamboozled, like a suckered hillbilly from Michigan. Well, that was our baptism by fire, which I found out later. There's a lot of New York stories like that. Well, we did eventually get acclimated. We had a fantastic summer and this incredible city to explore, the Metropolitan, the Museum of Modern Art, the best galleries in the world. We were meeting interesting people. And then that began to kind of run its course. And then as we moved into the fall and then the winter settled in. So 6 children. The youngest was 1, just learned to walk. And we went anywhere in the subways. That meant we went on the subway with 2 kids in strollers. So you're in a busy subway station. You're carrying strollers up, stairs in the midst of all these people. And it was just weird to have 6 kids in New York. Nobody has, outside of the Hasidic, community, nobody has 6 kids. I mean, it's weird here. It's even weirder there. And one one of the reasons we went to New York was we were tired of being weird here. We thought we could go there, and we'd have a break for it. We just found it. Still, we were standing out like a sore thumb. So our biggest thing was we were not prepared financially, probably, and culturally for the transition we had to make. So one of my daily rituals at night, I'd go online and check my bank account balance, and it was like sand running out of in an hourglass, like in the Wizard of Oz. And I was really, really getting nervous about this because it was taking a lot longer than I anticipated to actually develop the connections that we needed to make this sustainable. I did get picked up by a gallery in Chelsea pretty quickly because they knew my work from Chicago. I'd shown in Chicago for years. But then after about 2 months and nothing was happening, he kind of leveled with me. They just felt like my work didn't fit the gallery. That was a huge disappointment. The kids were starting to really, the newness had worn off, and especially the older ones could really beginning to voice their, displeasure about this whole thing. Like, we want to go back to Grand Rapids. And then we found out from our landlord that he was going through a divorce and he was going to be selling the apartment. We weren't going to be able to renew our lease. Well, we thought, maybe we can still buy a place. So I went to my bank, Chase. I had a talk with a mortgage guy there who was in charge, and he said that they had this thing called the no-doc loan. And I said I needed $350,000. That's like just to buy a junker fixer-upper in a very pioneering part of Brooklyn. And he said, we can do that. We can do a no-doc loan, $350,000, no problem. And as much as I wanted to stay in New York and buy a little piece, I knew this in my heart was not a good idea. And I decided not to do this. This was just beginning of 2006, and we know what happened in 2008. So I came back from an excursion in the city one day, late winter, and the kids were jumping up and down on the bed saying, we want to go back to Michigan, we want to go back to Michigan. Like it turned it into some kind of a chant or a song. And there was something inside of me that was just kind of tumbling down this black hole. I felt like it was almost like I was wearing this sweater, and they were just unraveling it, and I was just watching it kind of disappear on me. We had this notion of what New York was and what it was going to be for us and how it was going to open up all these great opportunities. And, it didn't turn out that way. It turned out really hard, way harder than we anticipated. And then it came time to rent another truck and pack up again and move out and say goodbye to neighbors and some of the people that we had, begun some intimate relationships with. And then there was a whole thing of just, the people back home. What are they going to think? We had this great last family art show. We thought it was our last, and people were, this might be our last chance to buy a cheap Beerhorst. But now we were coming home, and the other part of that was, when you buy a camping tent, and you pull it out of that bag, it slides right out, and it's all like packed really tight, and then you have your camping trip, right? And then it's time to go home, and it's like, oh my God, I've got the poles in there, the stick. How in the world could I ever get it back in? And that's kind of like us now. It's kind of like we got unpacked. How could we ever fit back into that bag? So, in a sense, it was a dream that just kind of collapsed on itself. Thank you.